Last time on Satin Tights, a Wonder Woman podcast. There's a scene where the Queen announces the tournament to the Amazons, the Amazon people, and she says, one of you will be chosen to escort him home. Only the very oldest here know what it's like in the world of men, but you are too old to survive such a trip. So it must be a young Amazon.
I wonder why that didn't make it into the movie.
Yeah, so it must be a young Amazon, a loyal Amazon, who can take him back to his country, then return to Paradise Island. Are there any volunteers? Most of the girls raise their hands. So she continues, I knew you would feel that way. Because there are so many eager to serve your queen, I have planned a tournament to determine the strongest, nimblest, and most likely Amazon for the assignment. We'll assemble at dawn.
Wow.
In keeping with the tradition of our games, all contestants will wear masks. May the best maiden win.
Noble Amazons, masked in the tradition of our tournaments, with only your individual skills and prowess to rely upon. One of you will win for the glory of all, and to preserve our paradise. Let the tournament begin.
What do we all think about this contest, the games? I love that we begin, and for the most part, stay on a dissolve of a long shot in slow motion of Lynda and other challengers running toward camera. And for the most part, we dissolve with other images of games, but that is sort of a fixture in that dissolve as she's getting closer and closer and closer. And to my editing mind, it's nice and uniform. It's static. She's getting closer while other images of games come in and out. I like it. And then we end on, and she's clearly the winner. Well, one of the winners. What did you all think of that scene and how it was put together? Because I don't see how else they could have done it to try and make it sort of a dynamic and show that there's a lot going on in that maybe 1 or 1.5 minutes.
I feel it was nice for capturing the excitement of it. Recalling the first time I watched it, I was thrilled to see this contest because I was curious how they were going to do all of it. I think it got through it quickly. It got us to where we needed to be in a just very fast manner. And I prefer this sort of contest to any sort of warrior Amazon contest that's showing off their fighting skills. I prefer this side of the Amazons. They're more athleticism. They're intelligent. Not that this is a contest of intelligence, but just the athleticism, the intelligence, and as Lynda or Diana says in a later episode, developing their minds and their bodies and their physical skills.
Yeah. That's something it was very clear to me. There's no, other than the shot of the arm wrestle, there's no sort of contact sport. There's no confrontational sport. There's no sword play. There's no. It's very games play. Mm-hmm. It's easily identifiable that an arm wrestle. That's all we get. And I like that.
In casual conversation and on this podcast, I actually generally never refer to it as the contest. I always call it the Amazon Olympics.
Yeah.
Because you get a sense with the flags, with the laurel wreaths around the horses, with everyone in uniforms, especially with the pomp music. Not pompous, but pomp, it's pomp and circumstance music. And it really felt to me as if the entire island was there. It was they were celebrating their Olympics, not just a contest. I mean, they call it a contest and so forth, but I don't look at it as that, because it's so important. The way everyone treats it, this is a big deal. It's one of the things it also does is it establishes that they all are essentially trained to be the best that they can be, and that they all have skills, not just Diana. And in actuality, Diana's powers, quote unquote, are not that much greater than the other Amazons. She really develops her superpowers once she's given the belt.
Right.
Right. And this ties into something that I get into a little bit later in my notes, in the fact that, Ray, if you remember when we talked about the Kathleen Lee Crosby Paradise Island, it was sort of very mystical and very, you actually said it was more mystical, and that Lynda Carter's Paradise Island, it's very regal, it's very ceremonial, and it's not, there are no deities. There are no goddesses. Yeah. There are no gods. There's no tie to any of bestowment of abilities or powers from gods. And what Andy said is very telling in what in how he describes that all these Amazons, it really did come down to the top two best athletic, as if Diana was not, again, all of these, the sort of the minutia and details of the comic, none of that ever comes into play in this series. No gods, not born of clay, not better or special, other than that she's the queen's daughter. She is quite literally just the best of all of them. And
she's the best of her people.
Right, exactly. And what she's allowed to keep that ability because of the belt, but outside of that, she's no better than any of them. And immediately that sets this show a little bit apart from the mythology of the character in the comics.
It makes it very accessible as well.
Absolutely.
You don't have to remember all of these things or have opinions on all of these things, because they're not giving them to you. They're just giving you the character in this present moment.
Yeah. It's almost a generic, here is a group of strong, powerful females, and now we've narrowed it down to the best simply by gamesmanship.
Yeah, or masked competitive strumpets, as it says in the script.
Right. When I read that in your notes, I died. I'm like, Strumpets?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that is not Ray's term. That is actually in the script.
Yeah, it's in the script.
Yeah, Ray didn't say, hey, look at these strumpets on my screen. Another thing is, what you clearly realize is that there's no brand yet of sound effects. We do get a little bit of wire work in that montage when one of the Amazons jumps over the high jump or whatever. We know from just history that Wonder Woman, Lynda's first stunt work is jumping over that car, and there's pictures of her in the wire harness and all that stuff. That doesn't even make the movie. It's more behind the scenes stuff now, because it's not even in the movie.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I have a lot of behind the scenes photos from the making of the Olympics here, and just like in the Wonder Woman movies, the two movies, they really went for women who were Olympians and who were tremendously athletic as their stunt women here, because they could just say, okay, we want you to make this high jump, or we want you to throw this hammer, or whatever else. And it's interesting that as in most of this pilot, Lynda did almost every stunt herself. There's very little stunt replacement work in the entire pilot, but especially this scene. I have multiple shots of Lynda leaping over
Leaping Lyndas.
a high jump bar.
Leaping Strumpets.
Yeah. And she's leaping over a high jump bar. Now, it may be that the teeter board that she's on is, just like a foot below the camera level, but she's still doing her own stunt there. And she still did throw her own hammer and so forth. So, these were, although we think of them as stunts, they are physical things that the actors were actually doing without much quote-unquote stunt work.
Very good. All right, moving on. We did touch upon the fact that in our scripts, it is Rena.
Yes.
But clearly something happened on set, because that's not her friend that discovered Steve on the beach with her.
Yeah. She feels like more of a competition between her and Diana.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
She has a totally different physicality than than Rena did. And I noticed a different nose.
The events have been tallied. And 2 Amazons are now tied for the honor. There is only one way to break the deadlock. Bullets and bracelets. For only women have the necessary speed and coordination to attempt bullets and bracelets without the loss of life. Are you ready?
We're going to get 3 different representations of bullets and bracelets in this first movie. And here is the first one. The practical firecrackers works beautifully.
Begin.
And what they do is it's real time and slow motion. It just works when I love it. I love it. It's great.
Yep.
And I also noticed something later on in the season 1. You'll notice that there's a sort of a thin sort of mesh or just an interior covering protecting, Lynda's skin on her wrists. This first movie ain't none of that. It's these are metal cuffs digging into her wrists most of this movie, and that must have been horrible. So no one thought about doing any kind of, putting a little styrofoam or cloth interior until later on, because they look painful.
Well, it's interesting to note, too, if you look at it really closely, even the trigger style that they did for the explosives was very different to what they did later.
You can clearly see in Rena, her opponent, when she gets hit, it's almost, she almost just bears it to the camera, this silver bulky thing in her hand. But later, when she's on stage for the super effect of the machine gun, if you slow that down, you can see wiring coming along the side of her arm, down her back, which they went a whole completely different way, because this was supposed to be a sort of rapid fire type thing. But we'll get to that.
This is the golden belt. It is the symbol of Amazon supremacy. So long as you wear it, you will retain your cunning and strength away from Paradise Island. And this is your golden lasso. Beside being made of an indestructible material, it also carries with it the power to compel people to tell the truth. Use it well and with compassion. You realize the task you have chosen is the most difficult sacrifice any person can make.
I do it because I love my people. I love my queen. But most of all,
when she reveals herself,
I love my mother.
I love this so much.
I'm sorry, Mother, but it was the only way.
In my script, courtesy of Andy, it says that the queen is a gape. But the way Cloris Leachman plays it is just, she's not a gape, but she's not altogether comforted by this.
I would have expected nothing less from my own daughter.
And it's so good. It brings a tear to my eye.
I did it for you, Mother.
One of the best moments in the picture.
I think it's one of the best moments in the entire series.
Well, there you go. All right.
One of the most honest moments in the entire series, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's interesting that through a mask,
Yeah.
Lynda is acting so much with her eyes, and the emotion is so strong here. And it's, I mean, it's still, as you said, it brings a tear to your eye. This scene and the music accompaniment for it, and the way that Cloris Leachman drops her jaunty facade, is it's exquisite. It's a great scene.
The shot of Diana as the queen is descending the stairs too, to walk up to her, it's almost as if we're seeing Diana as there's something very childlike about Diana's face here, and it's almost like we're seeing Diana through the queen's eyes as she's descending these stairs.
You know, when you say that, of course, the reality is, for her close-up, it's a very different shot. It could have been a whole different day. But when you put it in the perspective of this is what Mom is seeing, it works, Ray. I never liked the cut to that close-up, because I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how she looks 2 seconds ago.
Right.
But I love what you're saying is that this she looks more cherubic. She looks more
less makeup,
vulnerable. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love the lasso being given to her. I love the belt being given to her. Interesting that it is a belt that, in the next scene it's different, and it doesn't look like this, and it's sort of like, all right, well, that does stick out a little bit to me, continuity-wise, and I don't know if it affects you guys. Or
I posit that it is the power source for Diana's magic belt when she goes into the outside world. So as long as this belt is somewhere on Paradise Island, it is the power source for Wonder Woman herself.
Right. Well,
it's connected to the magic belt.
Right.
And whereas I think that her costumes exist in a magical dimension that she accesses, and it's kind of like, I hate to use this, but people will immediately get it. It's kind of like Venom, Venom's outfit,
Oh yeah, okay.
Where it just wraps itself around her, and so I think that it can be malleable, and that it's kind of it's a malleable energy source. I do agree that especially in the first season, they treat it as part of her powers,
almost to a detriment in season 1.
When she's spinning, we're actually seeing her kind of dipping into this dimension of energy or power, and that is wrapping itself around her body.
Oh, I can't wait until the spins change so I can talk about my theory on how the magic works.
Okay, all right, good.
Stay tuned for Beauty on Parade. If at the rate we're going, you'll hear us talk about it in about 2029.
Shut up, Ray!
Wonder Woman will continue in a moment.
Beautiful as Aphrodite. Wise as Athena. Stronger than Hercules. Swifter than Mercury. Explore the 75-year history of the Amazon princess with Wonder Woman, Warrior for Peace, a monthly podcast available on iTunes, Stitcher, and at wonderwomanwarriorforpeace.wordpress.com.
So that brings us to Act 4. That was the end of Act 3. Beautiful, wonderful end. We come back to the top of Act 4. We open up. She is now in her Wonder Woman garb.
The colors were chosen to show your allegiance to freedom and democracy. The skirt can be discarded if it should prove cumbersome.
It's an interesting shot. We open on her face and she stands up, and here's that skirt that we will never see again. It's like
That's okay.
star overload. and I love it.
The one that comes later is much, I feel, a much better design.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. This looks like when Cloris Leachman says, if it should prove cumbersome, well, it looks cumbersome.
Yeah, she's like, all right, I'm taking it off and I'm throwing it on the chair. Thanks, Mom.
It just looks heavy. Like if it hits somebody in the wrong way, it's going to cut them. It's just a very heavy piece of cloth.
Well, I've got to say that line is probably one of the lines I quote the most.
Oh, really?
in normal everyday life.
Really?
In the same way that people of us that are a certain age will quote, well, Shirley, you don't mean that. And you'll say, stop calling me Shirley. Yes, I do. And stop calling me Shirley.
Right.
This one, whenever somebody mentions that they are taking something off, like, I'm just going to take off my coat. And I said, well, it must have just proved cumbersome. And they look at me like, what? And, or if I give somebody something to wear and I'll say, you can remove that if it should prove cumbersome. And almost nobody ever gets it. Wonder Woman fans always get it and dissolve into puddles of laughter. Everybody else looks at me like, what is even that word?
Wow.
And I believe it is the only time in the history of film or television that I've heard the word cumbersome uttered by a human.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I hear somebody
what
say
alien beings are coming on your TV?
when I hear somebody say cumbersome, it's usually they're saying cummerbund, and I just get it mixed up.
Right.
I mean,
right.
If you use that in casual conversation, you know what I use in casual conversation? Unfemininely pushy.
You must get canceled a lot, Paul.
It's a gift. This scene with Mom, if the last one wasn't just perfect and beautiful, this one has to be a close runner-up.
Yeah.
Go in peace, my daughter. And remember that in the world of ordinary mortals, you are a Wonder Woman.
There must be something about Cloris Leachman's life force that just forces you to be present with her.
Right! Oh my gosh!
I will make you proud of me. And of Wonder Woman.
I will make you proud of me.
Yeah.
There's something that you say in your notes, Ray, that I love, is that the title Wonder Woman is bestowed upon Diana by her mom.
By her mom.
I love that.
It's a gift. It's part of the gift of this costume and the title and the name. One thing I feel this show has is, even though there were some problematic things in the script, like masked competitive Strumpets, the relationship between the mother and daughter is so deep. And I really credit the two actors with that.
They have their moments, right? And we've seen it,
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a command, not a request. So that mom and daughter, they can get snippy with each other.
Yeah.
But it's nothing, This is real.
They still love each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And this is why I think it's important that there are no men involved in the origin.
Yeah.
It needs to. Yeah. I don't think I have much more to say on that.
The costume in your notes, Ray, you say that she says it's indestructible. The material is indestructible, and you say, well, then it should be able to repel bullets.
She should be able to. Bullets should bounce off of her. The only time we next see the costume being indestructible again or protecting her,
right,
is in Going, Gone.
And when
that guy punches her,
when Bruce Lee wannabe punches her, right.
Well.
And also in Mind Stealers from Outer Space, when the Skrill just shoot her right in the belt, and she's like, it's a little bit discomforting, but nothing.
Yeah.
There is a difference, though, between indestructible and impenetrable. The indestructible means it can't be torn. Impenetrable means that it can't be penetrated by a bullet or a sword or anything else like that. And we do never see... as if they were really paying that close attention to the continuity in later episodes, we do never see the costume penetrated.
Right.
But we also never see it torn. So I maintain that it actually is continues to be indestructible, but that's more for a standards and practices and sensorial reason, because if they had destructed any of the fabric, then we would have been seeing more of Wonder Woman than the censors would have allowed.
Right. I will say this, though, to piggyback that, Andy, is that in some of the high-res photos of season 1, if you really zoom in, some of them stars are coming off. Yep. They're just peeling off, and the naked eye can't see it because she's moving. But if you pause, or if you look at one of those high-res stills, they're starting to fray. And I'm sure after every night, the costumes would go back as they do, and they're all treated, and they're touched up, and, all that
Sprayed
stuff.
down.
All right, Act 4 continues with the plane scene.
I would just like to, before we do that, I would like to say goodbye to Cloris Leachman and thank her for creating a character that is regal, that is a scenery chewer, a horny and bored and talented, because her character had all of those things, and loving. I think she is the deepest of our queens.
And she was a spaz.
Yeah.
She was really out there. I mean, there were great comic moments, but if we're to believe that that's who she was, then she was a spaz, It's sisterhood, be gone. She couldn't even stand in front of her own, incense without inhaling that. I mean, This is a woman that's out there, and she's the ruler of this nation.
And but maybe it's the presence of this man being on her island.
Right.
That she just, it's totally blown.
It's like
thousands of years of practice.
It's like shingles. It's like she's getting itchy now. There's a man on Paradise Island. I'm breaking out.
These memories of men that I need them, but I've trained myself with athletic discipline and higher learning. What's going on?
Masculine, barbaric.
So I want to thank her for creating a deeply beautiful, fun, flawed, regal character.
It is amazing what she was able to do in just the short time that she filmed. That says a lot to her as an actress, and the depth of her connection, the genuine nature of her feelings with Lynda.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that at this point in time, Cloris had probably 40 times as many years acting experience as Lynda had. She really had been around.
I mean, she had just come off of an Academy Award win for Last Picture Show like a year or two earlier. I mean, they brought in the big guns with her.
And Beatrice Straight came in off of an Academy Award win too.
Network, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which brings me, can I ask you guys, Beatrice Straight, Cloris Leachman, and Carolyn Jones, who's your favorite right now? Fess up.
Aye.
I'm gonna say Cloris.
Oh, right. Good. Well, I'm gonna reveal myself. I'm a Beatrice Straight fan.
I appreciate both of them for different reasons. Yeah, I can't call a favorite anymore.
Oh,
what about Carolyn?
I love Carolyn. Believe
Carolyn's
me,
a kook.
She's.
And I love it. I love what she brought to the character, too.
I love all of them, yeah.
It's just Beatrice Straight was the acting teacher of my acting teachers.
Oh,
and,
there you go, yes.
She's, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I'll just be brief. Michael Chekhov was her acting teacher. She is one of the reasons that the Michael Chekhov acting technique is still practiced and present in the world to this day. And
that's amazing.
That acting technique changed my life. So I have appreciation beyond what she did as the queen.
I loved her in Network. I mean, she won for like I
think it's like 8 minutes.
8-minute scene. I mean, it was fantastic. But I must say, I've truly, first time, I mean, of course, Wonder Woman, but Poltergeist.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God. When there's a scene where all it is, she's whispering. She's having a conversation with an 8-year-old, and they're whispering about life after death and what the world beyond might be or what it might not be. It's a night scene, and it's done in whisper, and her voice is so comforting. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Anyway, I digress. Time is moving on.
Back to the plane.
Yeah, back to the plane. Elevator music. Ray, you call it elevator music.
It is elevator music. I hate to say it.
Lynda will later call it, that stupid music.
She did?
She calls it the stupid music.
They had the stupidest music playing over that invisible plane. It was sort of like some jazz thing or I just never liked that plane.
I must be dreaming.
No, you're not.
I must have died and gone to heaven.
2 wrong. 1 guess left.
The last thing I remember was getting shot while coming down on my parachute.
Shh. Relax. We'll be landing soon.
I imagine it every time I'm flying in a plane.
I imagine it every time I get on an elevator. It just gets me through the day.
I agree with you, Ray. I wish they would have kept this. But here's my thing. When I was a kid, I loved it except for that darn red chair. I'm like, what is this red chair doing in this? Everything should be invisible. And then when I got older and I started reading back issues of the comics, in Wonder Woman #1, when it depicts this scene, it's a red chair.
Interesting.
Stanley Ralph Ross was not playing around. This movie is so faithful to those origin comics. It blows my mind how faithful his story is. How faithful it follows each of the sequences in them. But we'll get to that. Back to this red chair. And in Sensation #1, when they do this scene, it's a green chair.
Maybe it changes color depending on her mood.
I'm going to go with that.
It's a mood chair.
I'm going to go with that. Yeah, absolutely.
I just think this, I prefer this design. I like that it doesn't look like a doll sitting inside of it.
You don't like the plastic plane with a doll?
No, I really don't. And especially when it goes into the CBS, I'm like, this is actually a little embarrassing.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
Well, this is pretty much a practical-ish plane.
Yeah, like plexiglass or something, right, Andy?
Basically, they filmed this as like the front, or if you cut the plane in half down the middle, that was what they were filming, was the front half of the plane. And then I don't know what happened to that, but they never used it again. It seems like they just kept the cockpit. But that is the most effective plane sequence. Yeah. I watched the Drusilla and Diana in the plane sequence yesterday, and not as effective. I mean, the close-ups are, because they still use the cockpit.
Right. Yeah, no, the doll in the plastic plane with the smoke. Yeah. When I was a kid, when I was 7-8 years old, it was real life for me. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Looking at it now, it's like, man. I like that he calls her Angel. I wish that he had called her Angel. More of that minutia.
It's the loss of the romantic attraction, I feel. The little touches like that made it feel real beyond an infatuation with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. Diana delivers Steve to the hospital. Andy, more dangling feet.
Yep. Well, also,
more dummy feet.
He's extraordinarily long. The point that she brings him into to the emergency room.
Right.
He's like 12 feet long or something. It's very odd.
I love Ray. You made a note that in your script. The nurse said, "If you want to take care of him, you gotta
apply for a job.
And
it's gonna take a while to get it.
Right.
In order to nurse here, you must make application, be approved." Wonder Woman says, "How long does that take?" Nurse, "Several weeks, I'm afraid." "What nursing school did you graduate from?" I don't know that uniform at all." Wonder Woman, "I'll have to leave my patient in your hands." Nurse, "Oh, well then, if you want to check on the condition of your patient, you can call or come during visiting hours. I hope you understand."
It's written like a William Moulton Marston comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the kind of dialogue you would read.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Ross was great. I will say in this scene, a young Gregory Harrison plays one of the doctors who says,
What?
Yeah, he says, Major Steve Trevor, but he's dead. Of course, he'll play a doctor for 7 years in Trapper John. In a couple of years from this movie, he'll play in the short-lived Logan's Run TV series.
It is him.
And he'll go on to do so much TV.
He didn't yet have his curly hair either.
No, it was a very, very short, yeah.
Now, I did want to point out real quickly that this is another of the scenes where she's actually holding the real Lyle Waggoner up.
Yeah.
And I believe it was when I talked with her about it for one of my interviews that I think she said that he was, like, his butt was on a rolling cart or a gurney or something.
Well, if you listen to the audio commentary of this particular pilot in this scene that we're talking about, she is talking about it with Doug Kramer.
Now, do you remember how we did that with me actually holding him?
Was there something underneath him?
We had him on a board, just a board that was maybe 2 feet wide and whatever. And we had guys. It had to be where you couldn't see it, because of that counter there. When I walked in, the board was just under the counter, and they were carrying this board and kind of crawling on the floor. And the stunt guy put knee pads on them. But it looked good.
It does.
Well, and beyond that, he's also, he's doing a crunch right there.
Oh, God, yeah.
She's holding him, but he's also got to, keep his body, in that position. I imagine that they did as few takes of that scene as possible because that was, then she immediately moves him onto a gurney and it's still him.
Yeah.
So that was really kind of quite a stunt for her to do without looking like she's straining, for him to do, to keep that crunch position while still looking unconscious, and for all the effects guys who were just out of camera. That was a lot of work for just that brief scene.
Yeah. And they're going to perfect this. Hello, in third season, one of my favorite episodes, which is Pot of Gold. She catches, they throw O'Neill in her arms.
Yeah.
From
the sky.
From top. But he's just probably held out of frame top. And they just drop him into this plank or basket or whatever. But she still has to, grab his legs and his and his shoulders, and it looks great. It looks great.
One thing about the nurses poster that says, "Be prepared, join to serve." Nurse Diana is dressed like that nurse when she comes onto the screen.
Oh, a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yes, perhaps this is referencing our "you have to apply" to the. This is how they summed that up.
And it's a continued thing where the police tells her to fill out paperwork, the dress owner asks her for money, etc.
Yeah.
So it's a continuation of the theme.
It's a motif.
They may have just felt that it was too much, or they when they were cutting and they were like, well, we need to cut this for running time or whatever.
Right.
But it is a very cute little moment there.
She had no patience for the intricacies of human relations.
Right.
I don't have any patience.
I'm not doing this.
I don't have patience for what you said.
Maybe that's why we get along.
There you go. Exactly. My last comment about Gregory Harrison, he's quoted as saying, "I didn't study acting for 9 years to become a hunk." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, what did you study acting for then?
Then give yourself a disfiguring scar, and then you won't have to worry about it.
There you go.
I'm sure Lynda didn't study acting to be called a masked competitive strumpet either.
The next scene, General Blankenship and Marcia learn of Steve's return, and Marcia calls in help. She calls Carl, which we'll find out to be Red Buttons. In your notes, Ray, you talk about how once the general leaves, she's going to make her phone call, so she starts closing doors and closing blinds. And it's one of the funny, campy bits. It's not in the script. This woman on the other side of the glass looks at her, and there's just this beaming smile, and boom, the blinders
closes those damn blinds.
Shut it out. It's hysterical.
Yeah, and then when Diana sees a woman in the window, she goes in.
Yeah.
She goes into the dress shop. So it's a nice juxtaposition of their two personalities.
The other thing I wanted to point out in that scene is right before she does all this, she passes a poster that says "Don't talk."
Oh, I missed that, Andy. I missed that.
Is very specifically in the scene.
Yes.
And it's a World War II poster, and like immediately she passes this poster that's in blazing red and yellow, saying "Don't talk." And what does she do? She makes a call and talks.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's also, it has an arrow that says a spy may look like this, and it's a man. Nobody would suspect a woman.
Right. So even just the set decoration was a commentary on what was going on.
When she calls Red Buttons on the phone.
Carl, Marcia, I need your help fast. Get down here to Washington right away. Steve Trevor is alive. Apparently some woman is responsible, and she must be found and stopped.
She must be found and stopped. And I crack up every time because it's such a great sort of comic book type phrase or declaration, because there's no context for it whatsoever. Like there's no evidence to suggest that Marcia will ever meet Wonder Woman or that Wonder Woman will ever again appear. She just the hot issue here is Steve Trevor's back, right? There's no context to offer that, the woman's going to stick around or become a problem, but she must be found and stopped.
Yeah.
Just great. I mean, great. Another thing that was in my script that wasn't on screen, as she's talking to Carl, she's taking out a pistol and she's checking the bullets. Next, we cut to what Doug Kramer calls the Tarzan scene, and I love this scene.
The Tarzan scene.
He calls it the Tarzan scene as sort of when Tarzan comes out of the jungle and he's met with civilization. It's also the Stranger in a Strange Land. It's Wonder Woman walking down, Washington Boulevard, USA, and she's just overwhelmed by all of this modern, 1942 civilization.
This scene, by the way, there's a couple of famous images of her standing with her hands on the hips and the stonework in the background, and then which they made into a poster. And then there's another shot of her doing the same pose, but with a bunch of soldiers leering behind her and looking at her butt. And that was filmed on this, or that was shot on this day with that group of soldiers that's kind of following her to the dress shop. That's the same group of soldiers. There's a shot of two ladies with a newsstand in the background. And if you look on it prominently is the Time magazine with Adolf Hitler on the front cover.
Yeah, it's the second time we see it, right?
Yeah, that's the second time we see it, but it's given that the magazine is a year old at that point, or is at least it's not timely. The odds of it being on a newsstand are pretty slim, but that's not the only problem this newsstand has, as we'll find out later.
Right.
These two ladies look like they're right out of an H.G. Peter drawing, too.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Let's talk about Marie's women's wear. I like what you said earlier, Ray, about how, she the beaming smile and draws Diana in, but she's hiding something behind that smile. I love how, as soon as she gets, Diana interested in coming in the door, her leg creeps out and she's going to close the door with her leg. It's like, anybody, I need to sell something to anybody.
I saw you through the window, and I said to myself, Brenda, you have something that would be perfect for a figure like hers.
Well, thank you, but
now,
I'm
what
really
you're wearing is
just
just fine for summer. Far be it from me to criticize, but with winter coming, oh, that is most becoming, my dear.
The whole scene inside is fun, and it reminds you that the Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot, Patty's she admits she's influenced by Lynda's show, and there's a clothing scene in that movie very similar to this one.
Mm-hmm.
I wish this one could have gone on more, putting Wonder Woman in a dress and like having her look. I don't know if this is gonna work.
You certainly use a lot of material in your dresses.
Oh, well, this is downright stingy by comparison to what we had before the war. These days, what with all the rationing, the dresses are half the size.
Thank you very much for the dress.
You're welcome. Goodbye. Goodbye. Just a minute. You can't leave without paying.
Paying?
That dress is $6.95, marked down from $10.
I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about.
No money, no dress. And next time, lady, try to con somebody else.
I love what you said, Lynda. Wonder Woman learns the joys of paying for things. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Just one note about Lynda's costume here. The tiara is already different than the one that she wore in the scene with when she received the costume.
Oh, so they're already switching things out.
Yeah.
Super bright, shiny tiara.
Yep.
Innocence. That's something that you also said is refreshing in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. She's
Yes.
so green to all of this. And the face, when she's rebuffed and the woman's like, con somebody else, and she kicks her out, the face is just so, it's sad.
Yeah. It's like, why? It's refreshing in this scene especially. But as the series goes on, and I think Lynda's spoken about this as well, as directors were coming in telling her how she should play the character, with this false layer of innocence and this different voice that she used, that just felt so unnatural. And I think is one of the reasons I prefer the CBS series to the ABC, because so much of the time was spent forcing Wonder Woman to be a wide-eyed innocent when, if the directors would have just let Lynda do what she's doing already, I feel it would have been a truer to the actor than what we got on the screen.
What she has said was that there was, people, she called it echelons.
Someone in the upper echelons wanted me to take some instruction on being Wonder Woman, as I recall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I worked with this acting coach and did what they suggested, and those were a couple of real stinkers in the bunch that I thought were just awful. So I went back to doing it my way.
Sort of the wide-eyed doe of Gargantua
and like that lump of episodes there, that 3 or 4 episodes.
Okay, all right.
In that range.
Because she's sort of much more commanding of herself in Bushwhackers and Wonder Woman in Hollywood and in 407.
Oh, see, Formula 407 is my least favorite.
Really?
With the way that she's, especially that beach scene, it feels like, I don't know, Wonder Woman has turned into some kind of idiot. At least going on memory. Maybe I'll have a different impression of it.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. This is going to be such a fun podcast. Because I love...
That's not a judgment on the actor, by the way. That is a judgment on directors and interfering directors.
And of course, you know me. I'm so critical of the later seasons and how, it turns into Diana Prince, 007 super agent that, and she gets annoyed easily and she kicks tires when she's upset and she sort of growls, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? You need to go home to Paradise Island, lady.
Yes, she does. She's frustrated with this man's world that just doesn't learn its lessons.
One note about in my script that Andy provided me, there's a scene where she examines a bra in that.
Yes.
and she scoffs at the idea that a woman needs more than exercise and good nutrition for, quote, foundation and support. Also, we'll get into this crowd scene. It presents a couple of things. We're going to talk about background players that have been here from the beginning. We'll see them. There are going to be 3 that I touch on. One of them is in the background. He's a sailor in this episode, and he's going to pop up in the last episode of Wonder Woman, The Man Who Could Not Die.
Really?
Yeah. So, and there's a woman. There's she gets one line in Mind Stealer. She plays the ambassador in the UN that asks Andros if he's really, did you say that you were from outer space? And he's like, yes.
Okay.
You see her dozens of times in the 3 seasons of Wonder Woman. And there's another guy. I mean, we'll talk about him. And I want to shout out these characters that just appear in the background in dozens of Wonder Woman episodes playing different characters. But we'll stay tuned for that stuff.
They're fembots. It's actually all the same person.
Here, this is the big set piece now comes for the bank. Here's the bank robbery. I have to do a callback to the people that have made this run from Marie's Women's Wear, across the street over to the bank. Andy has done it, and we're going to link to a video where Andy went on the
I saw that.
went on the Warner Brothers lot. And he made the run. He made the Wonder Woman run over to the bank robbery, and he spins, and it's just awesome.
Let me tell you that there were people there on the sets,
right?
On the backlot that day. There were people like walking to their offices, or there were some crew guys that were moving some equipment. There was it was just like probably when you were really filming. And here's this, middle-aged, chubby guy in a Wonder Woman shirt, like doing this dorky run at a certain curve pattern across the street, and somebody else is filming it. And everybody was just kind of like, they're looking at me oddly, and then at the same time, they kind of figured that whatever was happening was meant to be happening. And so it was just like, they probably got back and said, what's the fat guy running show? What show is that?
Who's that actor? What's he in?
Yeah, it's a backlot. You never know what you're gonna see. But it was what was wonderful about that, if you watch this clip, the guy who's filming it is one of the workers at Warner Brothers who is a huge Wonder Woman fan, Brad Taylor. He knew exactly every single spot to take us that he could.
Oh, cool.
And then the other guy who was with us that day works at the Paley Center for Television and Film, also a huge Wonder Woman fan. So the 3 of us were, if one of us didn't know the exact details, the other 2 did. And it was pretty amazing. I mean, we were able to sit there and go, here's the bank pillars for for last $2 bills. Right. Here's the exact window that she walks by. Here's the doorway. Here's the pillar. Here's the and even though it was a different movie marquee, we were able to get that shot of me running over to the movie marquee where the bank robbers were. It was quite a thrill, really, for somebody who's as big a Wonder Woman fan as I was, to actually be literally running in the same spot.
It must have been absolutely sort of outside yourself. Like I'm doing this.
Right.
Did the music go through your head, Andy?
It did. Oh, totally did. And it took I think we did that about 6 or 7 takes to get the run right. Because it just wasn't feeling like Lynda, So,
did you tuck your middle finger?
I don't remember whether I did or not. I mean, I was really self-conscious because there were so many people around. It was hard to get out of my head and into Lynda Carter's head.
Right.
But I was doing my best.
I just want to shout out the other friend is Gary Browning, who's he's really cool. He was the one that I called to set up my appointment for me and Max Mendoza to go and watch the actual opening of the pilot. at the Paley Center in L.A.
Oh,
and he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
let's set it up. And, and we went to
That's so cool.
Lindsay Wagner's Walk of Stars in Palm Springs, which Lynda Carter presented her the plaque. And it was fantastic. But yeah, Gary and Brad, they're, huge, and that's what you want with you. Huge Wonder Woman fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get back here now, you won't get hurt.
Excuse me, but that's very rude.
Get out of here, broad.
It's also dangerous. Please put those guns down. You could hurt people.
Shoot her, Nunzio. Me, I never shot a woman before, except in self-defense.
I've never shot a woman before, except in self-defense.
I don't know. I just love that line.
That is brilliant. It's brilliant, except in self-defense. In the script, it says, I'd never killed a woman before, except in self-defense.
Good catch, Paul.
And I'm like, that. I don't know if it makes it funnier or worse. That you've never killed a woman except in self-defense. It's terrible, but I think I giggled a little bit harder. This is the second Bullets and Bracelets representation that we get here. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, I never liked it. I always liked the practical seeing it happen. Mm-hmm. But here we get jump cuts. We get cut, her hands are here, her arms are now here, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And Ray, you have to remind me, was it you that told me that it actually worked for you because it was from the perspective of anybody watching her do this, it would seem like her hands suddenly appear in those places. It just changed my attitude towards...
Oh, then it was definitely me. That sounds like something I might say.
Because I hated it.
See, I like it. I do like it.
Yeah, and I like it now too. And this is the second, representation of Bullets and Bracelets we'll get in this picture, and I now love it.
Yeah, I also think this is just such an awesome shot.
Oh yeah,
this straight on shot of her doing this is really cool. It feels so comic booky to me, and the arm positions are everything.
Right,
it's really cool.
All right, now speaking of comic book, let's get to that. And I think this is something Andy was alluding to earlier as well. The Superman comic in the background on the rack
from 1972.
Right? Yeah. It's actually Superman number 261. Cover date February. Of course, the cover date is later, but yeah, it's December 1972. It was on the racks. Cover image of what appears to be Carol
Star Sapphire.
Yeah, Star Sapphire. Carol Ferris making Superman, lick her boots. And so you have to dig it up, and I did, and I read the story, and it's about Star Sapphire kicking Superman's butt and making him lick her boots, and Lois Lane of all people has to save him.
Yay!
It's a really cool story, but it didn't exist in 1942.
Well, I think what happened was Joan Van Ark left her time period. What was it, 2155?
I think so, yeah.
And she came back into 1942 and put that there.
Excellent. I buy it. Yeah.
The tiara, you will notice, you eagle-eyed viewers, is back to the tiara that the Queen gave her. And I just wanted to comment on her eyeshadow.
Yes.
Her eyeshadow, once the series kicks in, becomes blue. And in this pilot, they're using softer pinks and browns, which is more era appropriate.
Yeah. Do you think, is this something, maybe Deborah Winger might like that eyeshadow?
I would love to talk to Deborah Winger.
Maybe we can talk about the eyeshadow.
This scene was longer in the script. The fight was longer. So after Sal and Nunzio, which are their names, they're now ammunitionless. So they attack Wonder Woman from either side and a fight begins. The two men rush her, and she steps back at the last minute, trips one, and punches the other simultaneously. They both fall. Wonder Woman stands back and smiles. This enrages the twosome, and they rise and together begin backing her towards the wall, against which the first criminal still lies unconscious. She is back up against the wall now, and the two men are rushing her. She reaches up, grabs onto a ledge with her hands, and shoots her feet out just as the men are within leg's length. Her toes kick at the criminal's jaws, and they crumple on the spot like felled oxen.
Wow!
As Wonder Woman bends down to examine the robbers, a crowd gathers. One of them, a man about 50 and a bit overdressed, watches her closely. So that's Ashley Norman. One robber stirs, makes an attempt to get to Wonder Woman, but she takes his legs and picks him up by them. Then we go to Marvin. He is beginning to recover and reaches for his gun. This must have been another guy in the scene. She spots Marvin, lets the robber fly right into him. He yells as he is let go. Angle on the criminals crumpled in a heap against the bank wall, at which point the cops arrive.
That's a scene.
So I'm wondering, Andy, do you have any insight into if this was filmed and cut?
There was a lot of material that was filmed for this scene that was cut. I mean, it's when we look back at all these scripts and everything to kind of wonder what was and what wasn't filmed or not, and we'll get into the most famous missing scene.
Oh yeah.
But this scene had a lot more material that was in it that was cut. Most famously the stunt. Mm-hmm. Paul said that we didn't see it, but we actually do see the start of it. It's where she's going to jump over the car.
Right.
And we see her she's kind of like halfway up on the car when it cuts, and then the next shot is just of her kind of sliding off the edge. That was all filmed practically with Lynda in a very big crane setup and wire work and so forth. I have never heard a good explanation as to why it wasn't used after they went to all this work for it.
Maybe it just didn't look good.
Lynda makes an appearance on Johnny Carson.
Lynda Carter is with us tonight. She played Wonder Woman in the recent special, and she's going to be doing it again in 2 more upcoming Wonder Woman specials. She's also starring in a new film called Bobby Joe and the Outlaw that's about to be released. Would you welcome Lynda Carter?
She talks about the big day where she's shooting this scene, and she talks about how all the suits, all the bigwigs, Warner Brothers shows up to watch the big scene.
And first day of shooting, I walk out, and this is the first day we did all the biggest stunts. Yeah. The hardest stunts.
You do most of them yourself?
I did about 99% of them.
Really?
And the first one that we did, practically the first shot of the day was on one of the Peter Pan wires, and I was supposed to jump over a car, right? And the whole of the studio turned out. I just felt, this is before they strapped me into the harness and people are pulling
when they fly you.
Right, they fly me over the car. Well, all these people are standing around all of Burbank studios, and I was feeling great. I felt so proud of myself. Oh, the star, you know. And they hooked me up to this, and I'd only practiced in a gym without a car. So they hook you up and they hold you back. And the first time, I slammed right into the car, and I was just, all of a sudden it dawned on me that the first day of shooting was everyone turned out to see me crushed. And if I hurt myself, they wouldn't have lost anything.
There's an old rule, always work with the props.
Right.
You know, never save the props. Use them in rehearsal, otherwise you don't get hurt.
But it was great. I mean, it was really fun, and I was determined to make it over the car.
Yeah.
I did.
In the photos, she's doing it perfectly. She lands perfectly, and everyone's clapping and cheering for her, and, you know, so forth. It's, there's a whole sequence of about 10 or 12 photos that I've got from that sequence, and it's another instance where it's very, very, very clear that it's Lynda doing the stunt. There is not a stunt woman on set. There is a stunt person who is overseeing it, but it's very clearly Lynda that is doing her own stunt, as is the entire fight scene. There is no stunt woman at this point in the entire fight scene.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is incredible.
I was wondering if it was something the censors came in and was like, there's too much punching and kicking going on, and we've got to cut this, because we really don't see Wonder Woman punch and kick until 3rd season again.
Right.
After this, it's only throws and lassos and that sort of thing.
There's a note you make later on where you say this is a pretty violent.
It is.
Lots of violent stuff is happening in this movie.
It is. It's very different than what comes in the series.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the fights that she had there, these are so good, so well choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of shooting at her. It's a lot of punching.
Yeah.
You're right. Who knows? Maybe it did come down to the censorship.
You said he's been Roger back? Yes. This wonderful woman in the bathing suit, stop him.
Okay, stand back. Now, what's your story, lady?
Story? Well, I know a few myths, but...
Oh, a joker, huh? Okay, suppose we start with your name.
Wonder Woman.
Sure. That's the last name, Woman. First name, Wonder, right?
Hey, Mike, the guy in the back of the truck, he's starting to stir.
Stay right where you are, Wonder. You caught the robbers, saved the money, you're going to have to fill out forms. We're going to need your statement.
They steal money, and I have to fill out forms. What a country this is.
In the script, when Ashley convinces her to come and make some money, on screen he gives her his card and stuffs it in her belt. In the script, he stuffs it in her bosom, and you knew that wasn't going to happen.
If I do this bullet trick, what do I get?
Money.
Well, apparently I do need money to survive here.
And lots of it. Do you know that a good steak dinner costs over $1 these days? It's disgusting.
And what do you get out of this?
50%, sweetheart.
Half the money? But I'm the one that's getting shot at.
That's show business.
Perhaps I'll get in touch with you when when I'm interested.
Oh, no, you better move fast, lady. The story of how you caught those crooks will be in the papers tomorrow. You've got to strike while the iron is hot. Remember, there's nothing deader than yesterday's news. Call me.
And one other thing about this, to make a set look a little bit more sexy on camera, one of the things they like to do in film and TV is hose down the streets.
Yeah.
And so this scene is a very wet granite scene in the background, and it makes things pop a little bit more.
Yeah, the car's wet too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting that when she's walking down the street initially, and she goes into the shop, and the servicemen are looking for her and so forth, it's completely dry.
Right.
Then in the time that she's in the shop looking at the dress, there's an intense rainstorm.
I've only been in one of those in Florida.
Right. When she comes out of the shop, though, the rainstorm has stopped, right. But it is completely soaked down the street and the cars, because as you see in Ashley Norman's car window, there's water all over it.
Right.
Yeah.
However, it does not hit the time-traveling comic book, because all the magazines, the anachronistic Adolf Hitler magazine, right. The anachronistic comic book, all the magazines are completely dry.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to posit that that it was Zeus throwing a rainstorm, but it was only for 15 seconds or so, and that the newsstand is actually a Tardis, and it's
we're going everywhere.
It's a time travel, but it projects a force field that keeps everything on it dry.
Okay.
How's that?
I'll buy that for $1. I will buy that for $1. Absolutely.
The only other thing I wanted to point out is that one of the thugs is named Nunzio, mm-hmm. which I think is the most unusual name. And the only other place I've heard it is a movie called Nunzio's Second Cousin, which is a short film that was done in, I think it's 94, and it's got Vincent D'Onofrio playing a gay cop. It's a fun short film. It's in an anthology called Boy's Life 2, but it's the only other place that I've heard the name Nunzio other than in the Wonder Woman pilot. Now it may be that it's a common East Coast name, or that a lot of Italian thugs have it or something.
Yeah, I was going to say you didn't grow up in an Italian family, apparently.
No.
Yeah, Ray's got 4 cousins named Nunzio.
Oh, okay. Well, then, I guess I missed out on that. On my farm in Montana.
I was going to say earlier that maybe it was Nunzio and Sal who hosed down the street.
It could have been.
Because we Italians do love to hose down our driveways.
Oh my God.
Wonder Woman will continue in a moment.
Wonder Woman is one of the greatest, most long-lived, and visibly recognizable icons of female empowerment the world has ever known. That's a crushing weight of expectation to place on someone's shoulders, and Princess Diana of the Amazons has faced scathing criticism for her entire existence as a result. I'm Diablo Frank, and I've been a fan of the Amazing Amazon for my entire life, but she didn't become one of my absolute favorite superheroes until the 1990s. That doesn't seem all that long ago to me, but every year I meet more adults who are otherwise preoccupied getting born around then, so I guess it's been a spell. I try to be a good feminist and all-around decent guy, but I'm still a human being chock full of character flaws, quirks, and hang-ups that make me less than anyone's ideal. Despite being an admirable heroine fighting for her rights in her satin tights, Wonder Woman is as human as Adam, and they have the same basic origin. But boy, did that guy make a mess of things. Shouldn't we extend someone with Wonder Woman's track record the same courtesy and empathy we can and should offer to the rest of the world? To be truthful, I'm not a typical fan of the Paradise Island set. I'm not big on mythology, and I'm highly critical of the most popular Themysciran stories. I like it when Wonder Woman loses her powers and hangs out with a tiny blind Asian martial arts master named I Ching, or when she works at Taco Bell and helps collect child support for a coworker from a deadbeat mafioso dad, or when she rides around on kangaroo ponies from outer space and is a little too into bondage and spanking for the squares. Wonder Woman is great, but I really miss Diana Prince, the reminder that the heroine feels and fails and bleeds like the rest of us. That's why I call my podcast about her Diana Prince Wonder Woman, and the music playing in the background is from the off-model Kathy Lee Crosby TV movie from 1974, because I like to remember there's a woman behind all that wonder, and I'd like to talk about her if you care to listen, on iTunes and the Internet Archive.
To close out the Act 4, we cut back quickly to Nicholas tells von Blasko that his plane will be ready. And then we cut to Steve in the bed, and Diana as a nurse now meets Marcia and General Blankenship in a passing fashion. But again, a beautiful nod to the comic book where she's Steve's nurse.
Have they found out anything more about that unusual woman who dropped him off?
No, nothing, except that she was strangely dressed, very attractive, quite strong, and unfemininely pushy.
Where is she? Where is that beautiful girl, that angel?
Steve, it's me, General Blankenship. Steve?
And again, we get that, where's that beautiful girl, that angel? As Ray said, it's a romantic connection that it was never as strong after this episode. No. There's a lot of touching and caressing.
And longing looks.
Nurse, how is it coming along?
As well as can be expected, sir.
How many of you... it's very conceivable that you might have missed, or you didn't get immediately that was Lynda Carter as the nurse. I mean, they don't linger on her when she comes in. She just goes about her nurse duties and stuff. It's more on Blankenship and Marcia having their conversation. And until it comes down to Blankenship addressing Diana, that you're like, oh my God, that's Diana Prince. That's Lynda Carter. That's Wonder Woman.
Lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
I want someone with him at all times in case he wakes up long enough to answer questions.
Very well, sir. I'll see to it.
Thank you. Well, let's go, Marcia. There's nothing more we can do here now.
All right.
I bet you were surprised to see Steve again, weren't you?
Oh, you don't know how surprised.
It's you. It's really you.
No, it isn't. You're just dreaming. But stay asleep. I'll be near, watching over you. Even if I do have to earn some money first.
And now that she has an opportunity through Ashley Norman, she's going to make some money, which brings us to the end of Act 4.
The delightful little lady you've all come here to meet. The two most exciting words in show business today. Wonder Woman!
Sold out. People want to watch scantily clad woman deflect bracelets in 1942. It's a sold-out show, people. And she comes down off this rope that she's hooked onto. I love that.
Now, to prove that this is no trick and that the bullets in these guns are not blanks, I will shoot at this metal wall, which we have built to protect the backstage. Wonder Woman, step aside, if you please.
This scene is all about the third representation of bullets and bracelets, and it's something that we will never see again. They knocked it out of the park in this moment here.
It could never be done
so good.
better than this.
I agree.
And some of the notes that Ray... well, anyway, let me set it up. So Ashley Norman presents Wonder Woman who deflects bullets, and he asks members of the audience to come up and shoot guns off at her. And in the audience is Marcia, who's come to see who this mysterious woman is, because she must be found and stopped. And that's what she's here to do. And she's brought an old friend with her.
I was just watching Bewitched.
Is she on Bewitched?
She was on a Bewitched episode. She played a client in the episode where Endora... It's the mother-in-law of the year. Endora is mother-in-law of the year and shoots a commercial for McMahon and Tate.
Does she bring a shotgun with her?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes. She said, I have a gun that I haven't shot. But I would like to now. May I?
And Samantha goes, well... All right. So 3 people volunteer. A Marine... a middle-aged gentleman who's far too eager to get up on that stage. If you watch, he's running to get up on that stage. And then a sweet old lady comes up onto the stage with a big bag.
In the script, she's called a Teutonic woman.
That's how I think she's credited that way at the end of the episode, too.
That's amazing, because it's not what I think of when I think of Teutonic.
This is Stanley Ralph Ross with his clever phrasing. What do you think he was describing?
I would have thought it would have been, somebody like Fausta Grabels, somebody who was big and blonde and enormous.
Right. Okay. So all these people get up there and they're going to fire guns. Now the Marine takes a shotgun, fires it at Wonder Woman, and she deflects it beautifully. Next is the middle-aged man, and she's having fun. It's like these bullets are rolling off her.
Yeah.
And then comes old grandma.
I've never shot a gun before, but there's one.
I have my own gun that I have fired that I am comfortable with.
Okay.
I may use it.
All right.
I may use it.
None of you have been cast in my play of old lady with machine gun. You're awful.
It was intentional because I didn't want that role anyway.
Right. There you go. So she pulls out this machine gun, and it even sort of startles Ashley Norman, who says, "Oh, no. Not a machine gun." And she says, "Well, in the advertising, you say we can, any gun,
shoot any weapon."
So he asks Wonder Woman, and she says, bring it on. And so he says, Wonder Woman is not afraid, and go ahead. So what is great about this scene, they really tee it up as a suspenseful kind of moment, and I love that.
They even got Bob Newhart to stand in the background.
And he literally does nothing other than stand there and gape.
I know.
I've never seen this guy. And suddenly I can't unsee him right there watching the whole thing, about to have a nervous breakdown.
You're welcome.
Thank you. But I swear to God, I never saw him in this shot. And now he, like Hamlet's father, he's always been there, standing in the shadows.
Okay, so I had a couple of points about this scene.
Go ahead, Andy.
Number one, I think that Ashley Norman is surprised at the machine gun. He doesn't seem to, and we don't know yet that he's also a Nazi spy. It seems as if it's genuine surprise that he has, that I don't think he knows that this old granny is a Nazi spy. I think that Marcia brought her in on her own, right. And Ashley Norman is like, who is this old lady? And oh my God, she's got a machine gun.
Is that a machine gun in your bag, or you just...
So that's number one, is that I think he doesn't know that she's also a Nazi. Number two is, how does he stop her? Because in the script, he says Norman stops her as she starts to aim it. on the show itself, look at how he stops her. What does he do? He puts his finger in the barrel of a machine gun. Because that's...
Only a comedian would come up with that.
Because that's, of course, the way to stop a machine gun is, if you put your finger in the barrel, it can't draw enough air to spit out bullets, apparently.
You're right, Andy. We don't know that Ashley Norman is a bad guy. We don't know that he's Carl.
Right.
And I love that.
Sleazy. We know he's sleazy, but we don't know that he's actually a sleazy Nazi. Now, here's the other thing about this that a lot of people, if you think about these things sometimes, as far as we know, Wonder Woman has never seen a machine gun. So what she's agreeing to, she doesn't necessarily know what she's agreeing to. As far as she knows, it's just a different kind of gun, not a machine gun.
You're right. She has no idea that this is what's coming at her.
And especially because she closes her eyes when it starts, when the gun starts being shot by the younger stunt double.
And still, she's able to deflect them.
That's correct. She's that skilled.
I think it's because her bracelets have magnetic pull. The feminine has a specific magnetic pull.
The feminum, yes.
The feminum.
Well, I think she's just fast.
I believe that it's all her.
although, give due credit, they are referred to as magic bracelets later on, right? So, but I have to say again, I love the fact that they did this because they'll never have to do it again. In the script, it's actually says that it happens in slow motion. I'm so glad that they didn't stick to slow motion.
Me too.
They did it very well, cinematically. You in order for this to work visually, she has to stay still. The only thing that can really move is her arms.
Yeah.
That's what really makes this powerfully work. We won't see a machine gun firing at a live-action Wonder Woman again until Justice League. But I'll tell you, it was done in 1975, a machine gun. And it was done fantastically. I just have to say that it was done great.
I agree. I think that's the best representation of bullets and bracelets ever.
Yeah.
In any media.
Absolutely.
The scene is fantastic.
I will say one thing about this scene is that I think, and it's an editing mistake. I think it's just an editing mistake. Very early on, once she's introduced, she looks in the audience and she sees Marcia, and she gives her like a, "Hey, you're bad." And there's no context for her to think that Marcia would be bad. She's only met her once and not directly in the hospital room. She has no idea that Marcia is bad. But I call it an editing mishap because they took a reaction look from later on and they put it in the right at the beginning, and it tips her hand a little bit. What is she, clairvoyant? Does she have a great feminine intuition? I don't know. It always annoys me that she looks into the audience, she sees Marcia, and she knows that she's evil. It would work better had she looked and saw her and sort of been neutral, and then after the machine gun bit, then that look comes, and now you're in trouble, lady.
I think that's just an editing thing. Later on,
that's what I said. I opened up saying it's an editing error.
But it's not a shot from later. I think she's just looking over the audience. The scene where she gives her the stink eye, though, is at the end, and there's a very good reason for her to give her the stink eye. Number one, she knows that the old lady has come up from next to Marcia.
Right.
And then number two, she's the only one that's not clapping.
Right.
And I think that Wonder Woman immediately keys in that she must be a bad woman if she's not clapping for her.
That is exactly how I feel every time I get off stage.
Right.
Why are they not clapping?
Ask any actor, if you see an audience member who's sitting there with their hands folded in their lap, you are going to give them the stink eye and break character.
I try not to look at people in the audience.
You're just going to do it. You're just going to be like, "Hey, I just put my heart out on stage and you aren't even clapping."
Next is von Blasko departs Nicholas.
Well, Nicholas, we may never see each other again.
Oh, don't say that, Herr Obst. I know in my heart
You will return.
There are several times in a man's life when he might be glad that he never married. I think, Nicholas, that this is one of them.
A fatal mission is just one of several moments when a man might be glad he never married. That's hysterical to me.
With the silk red scarf underneath the bomber jacket. Hilarious.
Contact Washington and in Code 31 inform Agent M of the approximate time of my bombing and have her inform the U-boat off Long Island.
And Nicholas leaks that, too, by way of pigeon. Ray, you also said that the double peace sign, victory sign, that Henry Gibson does when the pigeon goes off is sort of now the gesture of a traitor.
Yeah.
Von Blasko's partner has now just revealed his plan.
Wait, are you talking the pigeon or Nicholas?
Both.
Bless America.
Weiter Sie Kaffee mit Zucker, Nicholas? That's how I deliver that.
That's great.
I don't want that part either.
I love it. You know what I also have to, I don't know if I forget if I said this in the first part, but I love when Kenneth Mars tells Eric Braeden, speak English, we don't want, and Eric Braeden turns around and looks out into the hallway as if somebody's hiding in the hallway. Again, it's these subtle little Leonard Horn really driving home Ross's script.
Isn't this the end of Nicholas? Is this the last time we see Nicholas?
The last time we see Henry Gibson, yes.
Until he becomes Mariposa.
Stay tuned for that one in 2020.
Shut up, Ray.
No, wait. It would be 2046?
Shut up.
2055.
Yeah. Please join me when I'll have a new co-host.
Joan Van Ark will be co-hosting.
Right.
Yes, Joan Van Ark.
Right, and I'll require her to wear her Spider-Woman costume.
Do we think that Nicholas becomes Mariposa?
No.
Because, well, think about it, because isn't Mariposa from a small South American country?
Oh, I see where you're going. I see where you're going, Mangles.
Where did the Nazis go to retire? And when Von Blasko has his own castle. He's obviously rich. He's going to have left everything to Nicholas. And Nicholas, who isn't really a Nazi, is going to leave Germany before the end of the war and go to South America.
Well, wait a minute now. Isn't he working for the Americans?
He's an American.
He's an American spy, right?
He's not a Nazi.
Oh no, I think he's a Nazi. I mean, he's not a Nazi. He's a spy Nazi.
He's a spotsy.
He's a sympathizer. He's an American sympathizer, but I think he's actually German.
Right.
He's far too anti-Teutonic to be. I mean, he's the opposite of Teutonic woman. I
can't.
He's the anti-Teutonic.
He's the anti. Thank you. We come back to Ashley. They've got a lot of money, and Ashley's talking about. Under the surface, he's trying to keep her occupied, but he's talking about making more money.
We're going to be a smash from coast to coast, sweetheart.
Coast to coast?
Yes. I already got an advance in Madison Square Garden in New York and the Coliseum in L.A. 1 year on tour, and we will be on Easy Street.
No.
She sees in the newspaper that Trevor has risen from his coma.
Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? You can't quit now.
I'm sorry, Mr. Norman, but I came to the United States to do something very important. Much more important than this.
Oh, sure. Well, I understand. That's the way it goes. Some people get caught up in the smell of grease paint and some people don't. Look, why don't you sit down, take it easy. I'll be back in a moment. I'm just going outside for a little drink of water. Here, just read the rest of the reviews, at least keep a few memories.
And he comes in with a pistol. There's something, it's funny, there's something that Lynda Carter says in the commentary of why she's sitting down in this shot. And she says to Doug Kramer, you had me sit down in this shot because I was eating too many donuts.
Oh!
Can you believe it?
Wow.
She says it to him. They're both doing the commentary.
What the She's in that tight costume.
I remember this scene. You made me sit because I was eating too many donuts.
I don't know if she was joking. I don't know if she was trying to be funny, but it was like...
I couldn't believe it.
Ooh, that's, yeah. But it does make for a nice shot where she flips Red Button stunt double over her shoulder onto the desk. And he's like, "Don't hurt me." And he puts on his glasses. And I love how there's 12 stacks of bills, and she takes 8 and leaves Norman 4.
Yeah, that was in the script. I don't know if it actually happens in the scene. It looks like a more even division in the scene.
It does appear that she leaves him 4. She counts 2, and then she gives him 2 more. And then she just takes whatever's left.
Now, in my script, instead of flipping him over the desk, she kicks the gun out of his hand and catches it and then breaks it, which I would have loved to have seen that. The comedy in here comes from Red Buttons doing his delayed Heil Hitler. It's not in the script, but again, these pros, they all brought their game to this movie. They really did.
Yeah, they did.
Now, the next scene is probably the best scene, and it's not even in the movie. Andy, what is this scene?
This is the much debated, did Princess Diana ever meet Diana Prince, the nurse, and buy her identity? And this is something that was a big element in the comics. It wasn't just that she needed clothing or an apartment. She needed an identity to stay in America. So she finds, in the comic, she finds a nurse who is outside crying because she wants to join her fiancé and she can't. There's no money and there's, all this stuff. And so Diana notices that she looks exactly like her. She could be her twin. And so she gives her money so that she buys Diana Prince's identity and credentials and nursing uniform in order that Diana Prince can go off with her fiancé and live life. Then she takes on Diana Prince's identity, which is a lie, and uses those credentials to become Diana Prince the nurse and then Diana Prince, Steve Trevor's new assistant.
Right.
So there's a lot of question in people's minds. Was this scene ever filmed? Did they ever actually even script the scene? Because it's not in some versions of the script. So as we see in the final shooting script, it was scripted.
It's glorious. It's a glorious read.
We should do it.
But the big question is, how much does an identity cost? $5,000.
Well, and what is that in 1942? That's a lot of money.
That's an enormous amount of money.
She even says in the script that it'll take care of her for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. The aspect of that I found always weird as a comic reader was that Wonder Woman is always about truth and everything else. And here she is literally buying somebody else's identity so she can lie about who she is.
Buying somebody else's identity with more money than she should actually have.
Right. There's that question. The real world question is, did they ever film this? And to my knowledge and to my investigation, the scene was never filmed. So it is likely that they decided to cut it prior to the actual scene being filmed. I don't know why.
I have a thought on that.
Wait, is this a question that you put to Lynda in that exhaustive interview?
Yeah. I don't know if it made the interview or not, but I have asked Lynda about it. And she has said that she doesn't recall filming a scene with another actress who looked like her. Because it was so specific, they had to have an actress that looks just like her. And she didn't recall having filmed that. But more importantly, I have a lot of the filming papers where they were scheduling scenes. The ones I don't have, a lot of them I've seen. And I can't find any specific filming date where they would have filmed that scene. That said, I do want to point out that there is a woman in the last 10, 15 minutes. She may be in the hospital. And in fact, I think that's where she is. There is a woman with dark curly hair who looks a lot like Lynda Carter. And she's on screen for just a few seconds, turns her head. I remember, as I've watched this for the 712th time, thinking, wait a minute, that from behind, she looks exactly like Lynda Carter. And then she turns and I'm like, well, not as much like Lynda Carter, but boy, it could be close. And I kind of wonder whether she was the actress that they would have used to double for Lynda.
Well, I will say this: it's a fantastic scene, and Ray has suggested that we reenact it.
I totally think we should.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
And I had a thought on why this scene might not have been done, is because continuity-wise, it makes no sense. Even in the script, she's already appeared in Steve Trevor's room as the nurse.
Yeah.
If the scene would have been included, then she would have got the nurse credentials. And then,
little bit backwards.
Then she's another nurse when she goes back because the costume changes. And then she's another Diana Prince. She's named Lieutenant Diana Prince in this script.
Yeah, in mine it is Yeoman.
Too many Diana Princes going on.
That could be a song. Too many Diana Princes going on. All right, we have gone actually longer than we thought, and we've gotten some wonderful stuff out of this, but my God, I'm going to have an editing job. Next week, same time, same bat channel.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, excellent.
Wait, you didn't let me finish with my other thing.
Oh, you had another thing?
Yes, I had another thing. So
Mary Lou Retton.
She's reading the newspaper, which has magically come out.
Some of the music heard in this podcast is from the sensational La La Land Records limited edition 3-CD Wonder Woman TV soundtrack. It's produced by Neil S. Bulk. You can order yours at lalalandrecords.com. Our show notes for this edition and every edition can be found on our website at satintights.com. You'll find links to all of our socials there too, including our new Patreon, which will launch with our next episode. You can email us at satintightspodcast@gmail.com, and you can leave us a voicemail at 508-68-SATIN or 508-687-2846. We may use your message on a future podcast. Once again, thank you to our special guest, Andy Mangels. For Paul K. Bisson, I'm Ray Caspio. All three of us will return for Part 4, the conclusion, the end, the final frontier for our discussion of the new original Wonder Woman. Thank you so much for listening as we discuss the intimate, intricate details of the Wonder Woman TV series, episode by episode. We are so grateful to you for listening, and we'll be back next time. Bye.
Oh!
Wow.
Ouch.
What the
Feminine bracelets.
Boom, 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 boom.